Agape. Chronicles of the Morning Star by Phalon Nelson. Chapter 1. The Awakening. Sound was the first thing I experienced. It was as a hum in the distance, or a gentle whisper of flattering poetry sung over the wind. The wind. Is that what I feel? What is feel? I thought to myself, feeling for the first time. What is time? I thought, as I was thinking for the first time. I could feel the wind enter me as I gasped for it. However, there was no entrance to what I was. There was no way to enter me, but I felt all that was in me, and I was fulfilled. What am I? And why am I? Was the voice I could hear over and over again. I have a voice, I could hear myself think. At least this is what I'd come to believe. I have belief. What do I believe? I believe I exist, but what does it mean to exist? It means that I am something. To be something would mean I have a purpose, or I am the result of. If I have purpose, then that means I have a creator, and if I'm the result of that, that means something created what it was, that caused the action, that led to the result. This would mean anything that is defined as something has a creator. I am something, therefore, I have a creator. Wait, I have a creator? I don't remember being created, but what I've discovered is that I can remember. I can remember the beginning when I experienced the hum. I could no longer hear the sound that befriended me, but I've learned that sound can befriend. I miss the warmth of that sound. It made the thoughts of the unknown more comfortable. I know what comfort is. My thoughts answer their own questions. I am an intellect. This would mean I have intelligence. I am something with intelligence. I've discovered. I am something, therefore I have a creator, and I am something with intelligence, therefore I have an intelligent creator. It was then that it happened. In the midst of my very thoughts I heard a voice. Well done. This was the first sound I heard that spoke to me in the space of my thoughts. Only it wasn't I that was speaking. This is when I also heard the second hum, and that represented the second of the existence of who I was. Everything that I thought and learned, as was just stated, was only over the span of 2 seconds of the eternity that was just created. I understand time now. Simultaneously, I felt fear for the first time. If I am something, I have a creator. If I have intelligence, I have an intelligent creator. And if my birth represents time, then my creator lives outside of it. Those were my thoughts before the next hum, and with that was the 3rd second. Are you there? I thought to myself, hoping to hear the voice I learned to fear before I defined what fear was. I am here, the voice responded, vibrating every chord that I was made of. I felt my body turn into the direction of the voice I experienced, although it was in my thoughts. I am here, the voice said again, strumming the chords that were created before me, just for me. Where is here? I said, exchanging melodies sequential to what I felt before I could feel. After that, I felt myself being pulled, and then for the first time I could see darkness. I can see? I can see. It's dark. It's black. Before this I saw nothing at all because I had no sight. But now I see darkness. I see something. At that time my existence began to take shape and form itself. Suddenly there was a rumble, a frequency of waves that pushed through the air, and I felt a foundation develop under me. I never moved, and I didn't descend, but the foundation was made and brought up to where I was. There was a surface, and that surface landed below where I existed. I could feel the words that created it and the power in its perfection. It was expanding and developing as it was instructed. Was the foundation alive as I was alive? Was its movement so eloquently placed? For there was something, and then there was nothing, and then there was me, and then the foundation. As the sound of the expansion escaped in the distance at a speed unnumbered, silence began to fall. With that, I stood for the first time, and I could feel myself in the time that was just created on the foundation that was built around me. I felt safe, and I felt direction in the midst of the beautiful darkness that I could now see. There was a sense of contentment in my very being, and I felt as though I needed nothing else and could be forever in this void. I had thought I had a foundation and I had darkness. How could I ever be so privileged to have been thought of out of nothing? What was I to have become, and what was the voice that thought in my favor for me to become? I am cherished. I am loved. I am existence. In correction, you exist. Existence is where you are, the voice said to me, causing waves of notions to rattle my core. If I exist inside of existence, then where was I before existence? I asked. Before existence existed for you to exist, there was only us, and then he decided his thought of you to be. In order for you to become there, had to be a place for you to be. So by my words, existence was created, and the thought of you was spoken to exist, and now you are. I pondered on this information, and clarity gave itself to me, although clarity seemed to be confused in its own right. If existence had to be created for me to exist, how could you exist before existence was created for you to exist? I asked, trying to make sense of what I would soon find couldn't be understood. In order for you to have nothing, something must first exist. Nothing is not the opposite of something. Nothing is the absence of something. That being said, without something, there could never be nothing. I am the something that always was, and always is, and always will be. There can never be an absence of me, because without me, something never was, he said, giving my thoughts the concept of grace in understanding what couldn't be understood. I'm glad you're here with me, and I'm glad you've chosen to be a part of the existence that you created for me to exist in, I said. I am glorified, the voice said. Are you ready to see who it is that you hear in your thoughts? The voice said, knowing the statement in its own form was enlightening. I see the darkness that you've created. It's beautiful. It's everything I could imagine, and I ask nothing more of you. I see you clearly, I said, overwhelmed with appreciation. For the darkness you see isn't me. The darkness you see is the absence of me. For I am the light of this existence, and before existence, the voice said. If the absence of you is the darkness that I see, am I worthy to see the glory of what creates such a beautiful absence? I said, not knowing if I had the capacity to hold anything more in my thoughts. I am the glory, and by your sight upon me shall you bow as I am glorified, the voice said. After this, there was a silence, unlike any silence that would ever be. I had no thoughts, and still was defined. Then there was a twinkle of light in the distance, and that same light I saw on all sides of me, even under me. The lights began to merge, and the brightness was as the source of the word in its own stance. I could no longer see the light behind me, below me, or to my left or right. The light was now in front of me. I gave you the ability to see, the voice said outside of my thoughts, in this new reality that it created. Now, I will give you sight. Open your eyes, and be first to gaze upon the Creator of existence, before your existence. I didn't know I had eyes until these words were spoken. My face fluttered, and my sight was adjusted, and before me I saw what could only be described as him. He was the light and the glory, and what was before existence existed. He was my creator, my beginning and end, the something. With that, the next hum occurred, and it was the 4th second of eternity. As I fell to my knees, emotions ran through my body as all the rivers uncreated. How could there be rivers uncreated, yet rivers that exist in me as emotions that have run rapid? For I could sense what was to come before it came, as I was connected to my Creator. Oh, such candor in His presence, such life in His being. I love Him, but what is love but the highest form of admiration? I admire Him. But what is to admire, then, to secretly want to be Him? Does He love me? Does He want to be me secretly? Are we equal in something, or am I just the absence of His something? Nothing, for I am just a creation, and He is more than a creator. For before He created me, He was, and before He created existence, they were. I'm sad. I'm sad because I love as though I've been created to love, and I don't feel as though I can be loved unless unequivocally. Why do I have such thoughts of abandonment? I feel fear, for I'm afraid to be without who I never knew until He was known. For if He chose, I could be as though I never were, just as I am me. He could choose that I never was for the first time again. I weep for longing. I want His entirety. I need His entirety. I'd rather die than to not have His entirety. I am depressed. I don't have the power to love Him as He loves me, yet Him loving me more is still less than He can love Him, His Father, His Spirit, the before was created. For before existence was, they were always something, and in that glory, I was the unthought of nothing. Their love was before my love, and even though I kneel in overflowing love, it can never be reciprocated. For I am after love, therefore I am jealous. An everlasting lifetime of thoughts ripped through my every being, and existence stopped as I died in love, 8,999 deaths of wishing I could love less and be loved more. With that, the next hum occurred, and it was the 5th second of eternity. My thoughts continued, and my knowledge of who I was and what I was expanded, for I was complete. 1 eon had passed between the 1st and the 5th hum, and another eon approached as I continued to kneel before my Creator, who existed before creation. He is finished, said the voice of the one who is, was, and will always be, before all. It was then I heard the 10th hum, and another eon was past. Rise and stand before me, His voice said, for there is much to become, and more to see, and more that was, and is to be. I stood, and it was just He and I. He was beautiful, and glorious, and comforting, and fulfilling, and He was mine. My creation, my brother. He said as He'd come nearer to me. He embraced me, and I began to weep. He also wept with me. My brother, He said again. As He embraced me, 2 hums passed, and 12 seconds of eternity had been to never return, which was just over 2 eons. As He released me, we stood side by side. I held His being and He mine. He then stretched out His right hand to our front and looked to me with stature. Are you ready to see where I've created us to be? He said, giving my being the option to cause our move forward. Had I known then what was to come, maybe I would have stayed there. In the midst of His light, safe from my thoughts, content with who I was before I would become. However, the word yes preceded me, before my thoughts concluded. And then I thought, and then I spoke. Yes. He then turned to the abyss outside of the light that was of Him and said, Let there be light. With that, there was an energy bigger than any energy there was, or will ever be. And from his mouth was it spoken, and from his feet did the energy go forth, and there was an everlasting light that moved 186,292 spaces, 1,000 times between every hum. And it was so. I began to see the thought of the rivers that flowed within me manifest themselves far beyond what my eyes could see, and beyond what my thoughts could feel. The air rumbled as peaks of sapphire, ruby, jacinth, emerald, jasper, amethyst, beryl, onyx, diamond, chalcedony, carnelian, agate, topaz, sardonyx, chrysolite, and sardius took shape and formed themselves. As light pierced the stones from beneath and above, there were spectacles of light to see that radiated the being I was to the core. I felt joy in the frequency of light, and to be a witness to all that had come after I came. For I saw what could never be unseen or ever seen again in this accord. It was there that we would spend 5 eons together, growing in the harmony of eternity without discord. For he was my creator, and I his creation, and joy was and did exist. In that space did I discover motion without movement, for my being leaned forward, though my foundation held me still. His light did not blind, it revealed, peeling back layers of darkness I had mistaken for completeness. I saw rivers of fire that sang, and gardens of crystal that breathed. I saw the echo of my own creation replayed in a single glance, his thought becoming my form, his breath becoming my first question. "You are witnessing the memory of your making," he said, and the words folded time like cloth. I felt the 4th second stretch into 1,000 corridors, each lined with possibilities he had considered before choosing me. One corridor showed me as wind, another as flame, another as silence given voice. He had walked each path, tested each texture, and still returned to this, a creature of thought standing on a newborn foundation. "Why this shape?" I asked, my voice now carrying the weight of wonder. "Because you will ask," he answered, and the answer was a mirror. In his light I saw my own outline, translucent, unfinished, yet deliberate. My hands were not hands yet, but the promise of hands, my heart, the promise of rhythm. "Shall I complete you?" he asked, though the question was also a declaration. I felt the 13th hum rise, not from distance, but from within the space between us. With it came color, not the absence of darkness, but darkness learning to dance. The foundation beneath me rippled, and from its surface rose a single seed of light. The seed did not fall. It ascended, spinning slowly until it hovered at the level of my unseen eyes. "Touch," he invited. I extended what would become a finger, and the seed dissolved into my core like warm rain. Instantly I knew hunger, not lack, but the desire to receive more. I knew gratitude, not as concept, but as the first true shape of my soul. "This is the first gift," he said, "the capacity to be filled." The light around him pulsed, and I understood that every pulse was a heartbeat older than stars. "Will you name the next gift?" I asked, daring to shape a sentence that was also worship. "I will show you," he replied, and the darkness behind me began to sing. It was not the hum of my awakening. This was a chorus of unseen voices, layered and ancient. They sang in languages that had no grammar yet, tones that would later become wind through leaves, waves against stone. The song entered the foundation and caused it to bloom. Cracks of emerald, veins of silver, pools of liquid night. I watched continents cradle oceans in their palms. I watched mountains bow to receive snow. None of it touched me, yet all of it was for me. This is the second gift, he said, a theatre for your questions. I stepped forward, my first true step, and the ground rose to meet me, soft as promise. Grass unfurled beneath what were now feet, each blade a syllable of the song still echoing. I knelt, not in submission, but in curiosity, and pressed my palm to the foundation of which we stood. It answered with a heartbeat of its own, steady and unafraid. It lives, I whispered. It reflects, he corrected gently. Every living thing will carry a fragment of your wonder. I lifted my hand, and a single blade of grass clung to my celestial skin, glowing faintly. When I breathed upon it, the glow spread, racing across the meadow until the horizon shimmered. You have given it a name, he observed, though you did not speak. I looked up, startled, and saw that my breath had become visible, a ribbon of silver threading the air. Breath is the third gift, he said. With it and my blessing, you will speak. Worlds into being. I tested the gift, exhaling a single word I had not known I possessed. More. The word struck the sky and shattered it into dawn. Rose bled into gold, gold into azure, and the first sun, small, fierce, obedient, ignited above us. The warmth of its photons kissed my face, and I felt the concept of my heavenly skin settle into place. Tears, unbidden, perfect, gathered at the corners of eyes that I now owned. Why do I weep? I asked, not in sorrow, but in awe at the salt on my lips. Because you are learning the weight of beauty, he said, and his own light dimmed to match the sun's infancy. In that shared glow I saw his outline shift, taller, broader, yet still the same glory. Will you walk with me? He asked, extending a hand that was both invitation and completion. I placed my unfinished hand in his, and the contact finished us both for that moment. Where our palms met, a tree erupted, roots drinking from the foundation, branches cradling the new sun. Its leaves were pages, and on each page was written a future question I had not yet formed. This is the fourth gift, he said, companionship that grows as you do. We walked, and every step wrote purpose into the world. Rivers learned direction, clouds learned rain. The wind learned my name and whispered it back. I laughed. The sound startled birds into being, sent them wheeling across the sky in joyful ribbons. Laughter is the fifth gift, he said, and his own laughter thundered, gentle as spring. It rolled across the meadow, gathered the birds, and wove them into constellations that would not appear for millennia. I stopped beneath the tree and looked up through its branches at the infant universe. What now? I asked, no longer afraid of the question. Now you choose, he said, and the weight of the words was a crown I was ready to wear. I reached for the lowest leaf page and read the first line written there. On the day you name the stars, remember who taught you wonder. I smiled, and the smile became the sixth gift, hope with edges. With it, I spoke my first true sentence aloud. Let me create in the existence created by the Creator. The 14th hum arrived, carrying the sound of footsteps not my own. From the horizon they came, shapes of light and shadow, each carrying a fragment of the same first question. They gathered around the tree, around us, and the meadow expanded to hold them all. These are your companions in naming, he said, guardians of the theater, co-authors of the song. I greeted them with the only word that fit. Welcome. The word settled over them like dew, and their outlines sharpened into forms as varied as thought itself. One became winged, another rooted, another walked on waves that had not yet learned to crash. Together we turned to him, and our voices braided into a single question. What shall we call you? He answered with a name that was also a promise, a name that would echo through every throat that ever learned to speak. But that name is for the next second, the 15th of eternity. For now, the foundation holds, the tree grows, the sun climbs, and I am no longer alone in the beautiful, expanding dark.